Okay, so we're ready to go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Bowie State University Science Education Program. We are extremely honored today to have Dr. Calvin Mackie from STEMNOLA joining us today to talk a little bit about the future of science education. Hi, Dr. Mackie.
Hi, Ms. Blake. How are you? Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thanks for fitting us in. I checked you out. You've been a busy man. I saw you doing STEM Day at FAMU.
Yeah, I was at FAMU Friday. I was at FAMU Friday, and I was at FAMU Saturday. I don't know. I was somewhere Friday, but I was at FAMU Saturday for the STEM Day, so it's all good.
All right, all right. So we're just going to jump into it. Here at Bowie State, we have a special program for our science education majors, and we have a grant where we can pay for 2 years of the tuition for students who want to become science educators. And so if you know any students in your program want to come our way, send them on. So we want to talk about, sustaining that pipeline and what that looks like. So to start us off, maybe you can tell us, for those who don't know who are you and really how did you get into STEM?
Usually when people ask who I am, I usually start off by saying, my name is Calvin Mackie from Backertown, Gertown, Zion City. I'm from the little town where we don't mind dying. I'm from that wild magnolia, I thought I told you. And that CP3, you know me. I blame them down this way. So what I'm really trying to say is that I started from the bottom and now I'm here. But I went to Morehouse College. I started Morehouse College in 1985, actually in remedial reading and developmental math. No one would have thought I'd be doing the things now based on test scores. After 3.5 years, I finished Morehouse in mathematics, number 5 in the largest class from all ever graduated. Magna cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa, and I walked across the street to Georgia Tech, the school that said I would never be there. I would never be an engineer. 2 weeks later, after leaving this HBCU, I started Georgia Tech. And 18 months later, I finished a BS mechanical engineering. 2 years later, MS in mechanical engineering. And 4 years after that, in 1996, I became one of 11 African Americans in the country to receive a PhD in mechanical engineering. I had 4 STEM degrees in 11 years after starting in remedial reading. Like I tell my sons, that's gangster. So kids who tell me it's not possible for parents to tell me STEM is not for their kids, I say I'm a living testimony to what's possible if you will put the work and do the things necessary to build the building blocks to get the that you need. After I left Georgia Tech with my PhD, I at Tulane University in New Orleans. I was at Tulane for 12 years, the first and only African American ever tenured of the College of Engineering at Tulane, and people go, ooh. Now, that just mean that, there was many more qualified people before me that they otherwise didn't even let in the door. But when Hurricane Katrina hit, Tulane eliminated the entire engineering program. So not only did I get tenure, get my dream, I also lost it. And people say, well, wow, you can lose tenure. Yeah, you can lose tenure, just that you don't meet too many people that ever lost it. But, sometimes you got to thank God for what he did do. And God didn't keep me at Tulane. He freed me up to go into the community and do STEM in the community. So I tell people, I left the university. I got kicked out of the university to go and work in a community. So now we're doing STEM in the community and bringing the knowledge, the skills and activities to all the way from pre-K4 all the way to 12th grade to make sure that they are versed in STEM literate so that they can partake in the possibilities of the 21st century.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm glad to hear you say that because that goes perfect into some of the conversation we're going to have today. Our next question is, what should educators be doing in the K-12 arena to increase student engagement in STEM?
I run a program called STEMNOLA. Now it's STEM Global Action and STEMNOLA just an affiliate. But when my son was in the first grade, he came home. He said, Daddy, I don't like science anymore. I said, boy, you're out of your mind. It's in your DNA. He said, no, teacher, just talk to the board. My last teacher, we did a lot of hands-on stuff. So I went in the garage and we just started doing hands-on activities. And then my son, who's 18 months younger, he came in the garage. He loved it. The guy next door kid came over. That kid loved it. Kids from down the street came over. They loved it. And that's when I said, I got to get this out the garage and give it to the community. 8 years, we've engaged over 100,000 young people in hands-on project-based learning activities, having to build kits in the community. Now, while we were the kids in the community building kits, a lot of K-12 educators would come out and say, you all have these kids for 3.5 hours, no problem, no classroom management issues, nobody trained, and these kids are no music, no twerking, no drum line, just 200 kids in a gym doing STEM with their head down. I said, because the kids are engaged. So K-12 educators got to find a way to engage kids, get them moving, get them thinking, get them critically thinking. And it just can't be this top-down pedagogy that many of them are being taught in their pre-service teacher programs. So at STEMNOLA, we've developed over 30 different modules now that we sell schools, with curricula that we sell schools, so that teachers won't have to go way out of their way. Needs this curriculum and these kits are aligned with next generation science standards and Common Core. So I believe teachers need to focus on being teachers. Need to focus on, how to engage kids, how to make things relevant. They shouldn't spend all the time in Walmart or Amazon trying to find stuff. So we've packaged what we've been doing so that the can be the master of teaching and have relevant, culturally and environmentally relevant STEM stuff to engage the kids. So that's what education, because I think sometimes the problem isn't the teacher, is the confines and the limits and the bureaucracy that they've put on them that hold them back from being as creative as they need to be with our students.
Wow, that's great. Let me ask you this, because I know you said you've been doing this for a while. So how did the pandemic impact the work that you do in the community?
We first started STEMNOLA, we was doing these big STEM events up to kids and community centers. And we've been doing that now for years, but I'll never forget the day, March 12th, when DC shut down. And the reason why I remember March 12th, because March 13th was that Friday. And 12 of my team members, we were supposed to fly to DC to do a STEM event in DC on that Saturday, the 14th. And I realized then we had an issue. Over the weekend, the entire country shut down. So March 16th, I had something like 22 people sitting in front of me saying, what are we going to do? We spent the next 6 weeks, I said, we got to go online. I said, the people who need us the most need us now. So we had to reinvent ourselves in 6 weeks, and we pivoted, and we created a virtual STEM engagement program that had, won awards. People like, how are you all doing this? Most schools saying the kids won't get online and you can't keep the kids online. And we engaged kids in 47 states and 5 countries, during a pandemic. We went from engaging, 5,000, 6,000 kids a year to 17, 18, 20,000 virtually. And the college students that on board, they were so creative in a way that they engaged the young kids online. They were using 2 computers and they had one Zoom on their hands, and they used the other Zoom to make eye contact. And we realized that was secret sauce. So it wasn't like the kids couldn't see them. So we actually expanded during the pandemic. I went from like 22 employees to nearly 40. Each year, our revenues grew 100% year over year. And now people are talking about license model across the country.
Yes, definitely. As a STEM educator, I would definitely be interested in something like that. And I applaud you and your team for the work and pivoting on a moment's notice to get the job done. The next question we have for you is, what should parents be doing to foster their child's confidence in STEM?
Now we're getting to where the rubber meets the road, where the butter meets the bread. And everybody want to talk about the educational system and education, but nobody want to talk about the responsibility of the parents in the community. We live in a nation that makes sure every Black and brown boy touches a football before the age of 4. Every school makes sure that they have some type of sports and our kids have access to sports. Isn't it funny that parents have spent thousands of dollars on AAU football, basketball, travel baseball, travel track? And isn't it funny that the NFL and colleges never have a workforce problem? If they need a Black boy to run that ball or dunk that rock or shoot that pill, they cut run it over, but somehow they believe they can't find Black boys and girls to do STEM. And I tell them, maybe you can't find Black boys and girls to do STEM because you won't invest in their mind like you're willing to invest in their bodies. And that's the institution side. So the thing I tell the parents, and there's a whole lesson, is that, we got to get beyond the ball. We got to stop training ourselves from the neck down and train ourselves from the neck up. Because the man or woman who outthinks you, rules you, and the skills that our kids are going to need for the 21st century, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication are the skills that you get from doing hands-on STEM by working with building stuff, with dealing with perseverance. Those are the things, right? Because I have a humanoid that I took out to the school yesterday. I can do all the physical activities that when the humanoid started doing push-ups, all the little boys was like, wow. Then the humanoid did a one-arm push. And I said, you're going to have to learn how to work with the robot. Either you're going to control the robot or the robot is going to control you. So parents, if I were you, and I am you, I got two sons, and one is at Howard right now on a full tuition room board, fees, scholarship all the way through his PhD based on what we did with him at home and through STEMNOLA. And my other son is a junior, and if he want to go to school on a STEM scholarship, he would get it too, based on hands activity. So every summer, we made sure our kids was in an academic camp. Now they played, it was in a sports camp. But my son at Howard was all district in basketball 2 years. My son as a junior, he just made all district in basketball. He made a 30, but he just made a 34 on his ACT too, because we did not compromise the academic athletics. In my house, we say we do what we have to do so we can do what we want to do. So they knew they had to do the academics, so do what they want. So he growing dreadlocks. That's what you want, did you do the academics? You want to play basketball? You can have that if you did the academics. You want a car and go with the girl? You can have that if you do the academics. Now you don't do that, you're not going to have it. So this website called www.pathwaystoscience.org. Pathwaystoscience.org. For the people in the Baltimore and the D area, there's pretty much no reason why your kids be engaged in something, because all the government labs, all those institutions, all of them have summer programs, Saturday programs. I know what you're saying. You didn't know that. So that's why we're trying to get it out. We're trying to give parents as much information as we can give them so they can make good decisions. And a lot of times we have these conversations and we're looking at these conversations through our middle hands. And that's why when I created STEMNOLA, I created to stick STEM to the community for those parents who don't have the money or otherwise don't have the transportation. Well, just don't know. We bring STEM to the community so we can educate the entire community and parents can see activities that their kids can participate in so that they can get the skills of the 21st century. So that's what I'm saying. It's all of us, right? We got to make STEM accessible in the community. That's our responsibility, the institutional responsibility. When we make it accessible in the community, the parents got to make sure that they make sure it's engaged.
Thank you for that. And definitely, one of the things that's big in education, I'm trying to get into the forefront is, we talk about, like you said, the teachers and the administrators and what the government's not doing, school to prison pipeline, but we never discuss those parents. So now they need to be a part of this conversation because we saw what happened during the pandemic. And a lot of that happened because we haven't been talking to parents.
And I want to reemphasize, this is parents. This is not, when we start talking about parents, people start saying, oh, you're beating up on parents and you're beating up on poor people. I say my biggest challenge is with my middle class friends. I mean, they're the problem. I mean, if they support their kids, then the kids who otherwise don't have would be role models for those kids to aspire to. So I challenge everybody to do what's right by their kids.
That's right. I agree. The next question we have is, what do you see as the future of STEM education?
If I had a school, and I'm building a 42,000 square foot innovation hub in New Orleans now, it's not going to be a school, but it's going to be everything what I think a school should be. When in the summer now, most school districts are having what they're calling summer enrichment camps or whatever. They don't want to call it summer school, but it's really to stem summer learning loss. And during the morning, they have ELA and math. But during the afternoons, they have enrichment. I think that's pretty much the way schools should be. I mean, schools should be so immersive at this point, where kids are engaging and doing things with their hands. Kids are coding, kids are working in groups. the way we educate now is gonna have to change because the way the kids existing now is quite different from the way they try to make them seat in the classroom. So we have this gap, right? This chasm between the way school wanted to be, and they want it to be the same way it was 100 years ago, and the way that kids interact and exist today. There's no reason in the world. Some kids can adapt to hybrid. Some kids flourished online. Why are they fighting to get back into the classroom? I mean, if a kid can handle online and a kid should, why a kid got to be in the classroom? If I can sit outside under a tree and take the class and make A, why I got to be in the classroom? If I'm not in the classroom, then the teacher can focus on those 10 that really need to be. So I think a blended hybrid education will be the future, whether we like it or not.
Right, so we better get on board. And I agree with you. I've seen a lot of students do well. A lot of students did much better online than they did in the classroom. So, that definitely is something to consider. Our next one is, what do you say to students who say, and I think you've already answered this, that STEM is hard, or I'm just not good at science. That's why I don't do science.
I hear parents told me, well, I wasn't good at math. My daughter's not going to be good at math. I said, it's not about osmosis. I said, we are going to give your daughter everything that you should have gotten such that you would not have that mindset right now. You have that mindset because somebody didn't support you, somebody didn't walk with you side by side and show you how this thing needs to be done. So for the kids that say that they're not good in math, I would ask them, what are they good in? And when they tell me what they're good in, I'm going to ask them, how did they get good in it? And the way that they got good in that is the same way you get good in math. I mean, our boys will go outside and they'll do, our boys understand that if I run 10, 100 meters every day, in 30 days, I'll be a little bit faster. If I lift a couple 100 pounds every day and do 3 sets in 30 days, I'll be a little bit better. But we won't make that leap to academics. We won't make that leap to math. We won't make that leap to science. It really blow my mind. We do a whole module on the physics of sound. And we bring in a drum line, we bring in the violinist, we bring in all type of percussionists, and they talk about how sound is nothing but waves and physics and math. And then we get into the physics of sound. The same kids who say, I don't like physics and I don't like math are the same kids playing the music without realizing it's one and the same. And we have to break those walls down to show our kids that if you can play an instrument, guess what you can do? You can do math. You just got to focus and put the time in.
And so what I hear you as an educator talking about is cultural responsiveness in teaching, because what you do is, in culture doesn't always mean, race. It just means, what they're interested in and making it work. And so glad to hear you agreeing on that point.
I believe STEM should be culturally and environmentally relevant. You're absolutely right. And what I mean by culturally, it should be, in New Orleans, we have Mardi Gras. So we have a big old STEM event around the art of STEM. And we're showing the kids chemiluminescence and the way these lights are made and how they build floats and how they bring those together. We have STEM events around the food science because you have food chemistry, you have food manufacturing. So in New Orleans, we consume a lot of food, but we're not in the business of food. We're not in the STEM of food. So that's culture. Now, environmentally, everybody know we went through Katrina. May rain tomorrow, we may flood. So why is it in our schools they're teaching in earth science, they're teaching about volcanoes and floods when we damn near just drowned? So we have coastal restoration modules, kids about wetlands, how to build levees. My point is that we do STEM in such a way when a kid walk outside or walk in their house, they know that everything around them is STEM.
Can't live without it. I wasn't going to mention Mardi Gras, but since you brought it up, I didn't make it home for Mardi Gras, but I sure saw those STEMNOLA coconuts. So if anybody can hook me up.
But send me your mailing address. I got a box sitting right there. I got to send people. People want the STEMNOLA coconut. So I saved the whole box just mail people the coconut when they ask for it. And we look way out decorating. We have feathers on them and all type of stuff.
They look so good. I was like, I should have came home, but we'll work that out. I'll be there next time.
Yeah, you're right.
Our next question is, what is the impact of race and gender on the future of STEM?
Oh, that's a real question. You know, we are human beings before we're human doers. And in STEM, we focus so much on the doing that we forget about the being. And when I got to Morehouse dealt with my being, such that when I got my being all right, then I knew what I could do. And that's the transformative power of historically Black colleges, right? They get our head right so our hands can achieve. We go to other schools, if your head not right, they don't give a damn, and then your hands fail and they blame it on you. So we cannot take the person out of STEM. We cannot take who we are, our experiences, out of who we are. So all of that come to bear, we do. So we look at something like artificial intelligence and people say, can robots be racist? Can robots be biased? But they're finding out now in that sense, people are coding the artificial intelligence and the robots are building in their bias into the machines. So we have everybody at the table when this stuff is being created. We got to have everybody at the table when this stuff is being researched. We got to have everybody at the table when things are being deployed. And that's why when we start talking about the critical skills we get from STEM, I always add a fifth one on there. We talk about we talk about critical thinking. We talk about creativity, collaboration, and communication. And the fifth one is community. And that's STEMNOLA. That's why we bring everybody together, because we not only gonna have to learn how to collaborate, but we're gonna have to actually learn how to live together. Because day in and day out, we're gonna do STEM. Day in and day out, we're gonna be in communities together. And day in, day out, it's gonna take a group of people to solve complex problems. So we cannot dismiss a woman because a woman, or dismiss a Black person because they're a Black person, because God, littered every community with genius. And like the NFL, they go and they put football in every boy's hand to find the fastest, strongest, one. We got to put STEM in everybody's hand, especially all of the Black and brown kids, all of the women and girls, and find out where the genius is, because all of us have been impregnated with something so great, such that if we don't give birth to it, the world gonna just have to go on without it. So who's to say that's in a white male? We know that isn't the case. And that's why I started this whole no more lost Einsteins, for lack of a better word. I wanted to call it no more lost Imhoteps, but we got to make sure that we find the genius in our communities all across this globe.
Ooh, that was heavy. On point and on time. Very clear answer about intersectionality and the role it plays in science. Last question, and the students wrote these, so I appreciate their input. What can HBCUs do to encourage the next generation of Calvin Mackies?
Always get in trouble with that one. Look, when I got to Morehouse in remedial reading development of mathematics, they made it very clear. They was calling me doctor then. They knew they were calling me doctor and I couldn't even spell PhD. But they were setting up the mark out there. And they were saying, we believe you can get there, but you got to do this. The HBCUs can no longer, we can't be in a position of lowering the bar because our kids won't reach to it. We got to hold the bar high and let them know this is the bar, and 2, you got to get there. And 3, we're going to be with you the whole time to help you get there. There's no cutting corners when it come around to STEM. And because at the end of the day, like an engineer, it was Hoover, President Hoover asked him, what make an engineer different? He said, an engineer is unlike any other profession. He said, an engineer is unlike a doctor who can bury his mistakes. He's unlike a lawyer who can argue his mistakes away. He's unlike a politician that can blame his mistake on his opponent across the aisle. He said he's unlike an architect that can cover up his mistakes with shrubberies and trees and bushes. He said, an engineer is him because when he makes a mistake, his mistake is in the public for the world to see. So therefore, we got to understand when we're in engineering school, As an undergrad, we're in professional school. Everybody else getting business degrees, biology degrees. Engineering is the only degree where after 4 years, you are an engineer. If you never practice again, you never do anything. When you die 100 years later, they're gonna put engineer on your tombstone. So HBCUs gotta let our children know that they're preparing them for a very hostile world that don't give a damn about them. And if the world had a choice, the world wouldn't even have it in them. So therefore, we don't have time to be mediocre. We don't have a time to be average. The day of average is over. They got to get up and work like they've never worked before. My point to all the students listening is that if you're willing to work the next 4 years, like most people are not willing to work, I promise you, you rest of your life, and most people will never be able to live. But the thing is, we got to get back to putting in the effort. And this thing is not about no celebrity. It's funny. And I mean, let me, I keep saying we're at war, right? And on my TV, they talk about President Zelensky and, fighting the Russian and the Ukraine. And when the Russians got around the Ukraine, the United States called them up and said, look, man, the Russians are coming and we can offer you a safe passage. We can fly out of there. And President Zelensky said, man, I don't need a ride. I need some ammunition. This is where the fight is. And when our people realize that we are at war, there's a little kid in India and a little kid in China studying under a cloak of darkness to a candle, preparing for the day to kick our behinds, and it's not even personal. When they realize we are literally at war, when people offer them a ride, they're gonna say, I don't need no, I need some ammunition. I need some fuel. I need scholarships. I need some science. I need some missiles. I need everything I need to fight the battle that I'm going into. And students, I want you all to know, you are going into a battle, so prepare.
All right, they in here testifying like they in church, waving their hands and stuff. So we really appreciate you joining us today and taking a few minutes of your time to just share with us for our science education students. As we wrap up, I have my own question for you. Bowie has bioinformatics programs. They have, of course, biology and chemistry and the science ed majors. When you hear some of those, what type of jobs? Because I think that's what our kids are struggling with. Like when you hear bioinformatics, the kids don't automatically parallel that to a job. So what would these jobs in the future look like that they should be looking towards?
I was in a school the other day and a young man said, man, what actually do you do? I said, I do what the hell I want to do. You see, the man or woman who doesn't have skills asks people how much they pay. The man or woman who does have skills tell people how much they charge. So my point to the kids is that get skills to pay the bills. In the 21st century, you got to have skills to pay the bills. So all those things are skills, right? Stop thinking about a job. When you go get the skill, when you can do something that nobody else do, the job gonna come find you. And if the job doesn't come find you, what we really need to get into as African Americans and minorities, especially as women, is creating a job. I mean, the future stands at the intersectionality of data, information, and biology, bioinformatics, right? It stands at the intersection, of biology and medicine and DNA and people doing genome. So really, you need to have a broad base of knowledge, but then a very narrow expertise so you can pull things from other areas and build something that never existed before. Here I am with a PhD in mechanical engineering, was a professor for 12 years, did research, graduated students. I'm working in a community. And I'm working in a community because I had speaking skills from going around the country speaking. I had professorial skills from being a professor. And then I had these engineering skills that allowed me to bring all of that together and create something beautiful for my community, create something that the country has never seen before. Moving Black kids that people say cannot be moved. But if I was waiting for somebody to give me this job, it never would have existed. Matter of fact, when Tulane fired me, I said, I'm gonna write a book, Kicked Out by Faith, because the only thing God did for me was that which I didn't have the courage to do for myself. And that's go out and create something beautiful and take the risk to save my people.
Well, guys, you've heard it directly from Dr. Calvin Mackie for another stimulating conversation in STEM. Thank you again for joining us.